we've seen Professor Jonathan Moyo seemingly supporting the Emerson Tambutso Mnangagwa faction left, right, and center, especially when they began to clash with the former leader of the Citizens Coalition for Change, that is Nelson Chamisa. Guess what? He is of the view that Emerson Tambutso Mnangagwa's term extension is actually permissible to be just done through the parliament, which is the arm of the state, without necessarily going through a referendum. A point that David Coltard had actually, with clarity, explained so loud and clear. I wonder what is in the mind of Professor Jonathan Moyo. A flip-flopper of not. I think he has been exposed numerous times that he is not someone who is ethical. He can actually support anything and justify it at any time. Greetings and welcome on your lovely channel, the Hlonipani Global News. If you're watching us for the very first time, please do remember to press the red or black subscribe button so that next time when we beam live, you become the very first one to watch us. So, according to Professor Jonathan Moyo has written the following, actually quoting also David Coltard. He says the Constitution and the binding case law permit term of office extensions without referendum. And he goes on to say, a rebuttal to David Coltard, the bold claim by David Coltard that giving effect to ZANU-PF's October 2024 resolution number 1 to extend President Emerson Tambutso Mnangagwa's term of office by 2 years would necessitate 2 referendums under section 228(6) to 9 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe 2013 as amended is profoundly wrong. That is what Professor Jonathan says. He says, by conflicting term limit provisions which kept re-eligibility of incumbents with term length provisions or terms of office, such as the one in section 95(2)(b, Coltard overlooks critical distinctions that allow for lawful amendments without referendums. The fundamental misinterpretation ignores the binding precedent set by the Constitutional Court in Max Mapungu versus Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, and 6 ORS, then case, I think it's CCZ7/2021. In that case, the Constitutional Court meticulously differentiated term limit provisions from mere term lengths, holding that amendments to durations or terms of office can be enacted solely through a 2/3 parliamentary majority under section 3285 without invoking referendum required of section 328(6) to 9. Coltard's assertion is that, he writes, that any extension of incumbents' term of office demands 2 referendums is unsupported by legal reasoning or case law, rendering it not only inaccurate but also dangerously misleading. So the fact that there is no case law supporting that, but the Constitution clearly clarifying the matter, Professor Jonathan Moyo, does this then qualify as something to be lawful? I think Jonathan Moyo is so desperate. Even the case law that he used, I strongly believe it didn't actually, it did not give anyone powers to actually extend his term of office by merely just parliament and senators 2/3 majority. There is absolutely nowhere in the Constitution of 2013 where that is asserted. This is just manipulation because someone is able to write a piece of is able to interpret law in his own way. This is his own interpretation that hasn't been actually proven in any court of law. So let me just go. It says Coltard's assertion that any extension of an incumbent's term of office demands two referendums is unsupported by any reasoning or case law, rendering it not. So if there is no case laws arises when actually there is a case. So there hasn't been a case of that nature. So you cannot say by mere absence of such case laws, then I mean that means the way he interprets the Constitution is actually how a normal court would actually interpret it. I think somehow, I stand to but we know anyway, Professor Jonathan Moyo, and I know that anyone who went to school, even myself, if I want to defend something, no matter how wrong it is, I can actually write a long essay and defend it. So this is what he is simply doing. He says, far from disingenuous, as Coltard alleges in his post on X, the position that ZANU-PF's October 2024 resolution can be implemented via an amendment to Section 95 to be extending the presidential term length or term of office is firmly grounded in both constitutional text and case law. Such a change would only amend the duration of the office without touching the true or actual term limit on the officer in Section 91(2), which disqualifies a president from remaining in office after 2 terms. You see, the Constitution makes it clear that a president should serve only for 2 terms, and it defines a term limit. Then someone comes and say, no, the Constitution is silent on extension. It only clarifies the term. Now, there is a reason why the fathers of the Constitution deliberately put the sections that defines a term limit of that a president should serve, as well as also making it clear that after serving 2 terms, which is 10 years in totality, no individuals should go beyond that. Then they envisaged that after 10 years, someone may want to extend with 1 or 2 years. The mere fact that they give the people who coined the Constitution and those who equally voted for it, the mere fact that they clarified the term of office, as well as also restrictions from going beyond more than 2 terms, I think that is sufficient enough that any form of backdoor third term or manipulation for someone to get a 3rd term should actually be thwarted. So we've seen that ZANU-PF does not only want to extend the term of office of Emmerson Tambutso Mnangagwa, but they want Emmerson Tambutso Mnangagwa to go for a 3rd term. Now they are speaking about 2035. I don't know which world is Jonathan living to, but we know he is acting like an it girl. Professor Jonathan Moyo, as well as Themba Mliso, are just one and the same people. You can liken them to slay queens. I think there is absolutely nothing more than this. He continues to say, in the landmark Mupungu case, the Constitutional Court interpreted Section 328 definition of a term limit provision, a provision of this Constitution which limits the length of time that a person may hold or occupy a public office as requiring a fixed, specific, and determinable duration with explicit non-renewability or numerical maximum, like Section 186 bracket 2, non-renewable term limits of not more than 15 years for constitutional court judges. Drawing on precise dictionary definitions, the court contrasted a term limit, a bounded period with a clear start and end, from period a flexible span subject to contingencies, age limits like those extended from 70 to 75 in the Mapungu case were deemed non-specific infractions of time, contingent and adjustable, thus falling outside term limit protections. He's trying, Shem, but I don't know how he's applying this case law in this scenario. This ratio decidedly establishes a clear legal principle. Term limit provisions safeguard against personal entrenchment through rigid caps. 2 presidential terms requiring referendums for incumbent extensions under 328(7). In contrast, term length and term of office provisions like age boundaries or institutional durations similar to those in section 95(2)(b) and 143(1) are malleable frameworks, amendable without such hackles, as they lack inherent finality and allow for equitable continuation in office for incumbents. Applied to section 95(2)(b), the 5-year presidential term of office is inherently variable. It extends until events like resignation, removal, or parliament dissolution, mirroring the contingent logic in the Mapungu case. This provision outlines the office's maximum framework, which is 5 years. It is not a personal cap on the president as a public office. The Constitution's sole presidential term limit on the office holder lies in section 91(2)'s two-term bar, which would remain untouchable by a term length amendment to section 95(2)(b). Amending section 95(2)(b) to 7 years, for instance, would simply recalibrate this flexible duration, enabling the extension to 2030 via a 2/3 vote in each house in parliament, free from the dictates of section 328(6) to 9. I don't know where he is taking this. His interpretation just like he just talk without actually citing specific sections, which says the parliament as well as the Senate are empowered alone to extend the term of office of a sitting president. Whilst it is made clear that going beyond 10 years would require referendums, 2 referendums, and not only that, the term of office is clearly defined. How many years? I wonder what exactly is in the mind of Professor Jonathan Moyo. It shows that this is a desperate person who has been paid and is writing these CVs most probably to appear to be rendering a service. But the more I read, the more I see how foolish the man is. Now he goes to say, Coltard's reliance on the phrase of which is to extend in section 328(7) misses the important guardrails in the Mapungu case. Referendums are triggered only by alterations to actual term limit provisions, such as in section 91(2), not alterations of variable term lengths. So he's saying because the Constitution is silent on term duration, then the parliament can actually manipulate that silence of the Constitution. But the same Constitution, as much as they argue that it is silent on term extension, it makes it clear that any president should serve 10 years. 2028 would have completed his 10 years. Now, going beyond 10 years, the fact that they defined the term limit, they never envisaged that there would be a cunning individual like Emerson Mnangagwa and individuals such as Professor Jonathan Moyo, who would love by hook and a crook to actually bend the laws. This is a desperate attempt to bend the law, but the Constitution is so very, very clear. The fact that it is silent, if it is silent on an issue, and also, I mean, sometimes those who were crafting or framing this constitution would never have envisaged that there would be a desperate person like Emerson Tambutso Mnangagwa, a cunning criminal like Emerson Tambutso Mnangagwa, who would love, through all means, through the use of money, to actually pay it men. I call them it men, not it girls. Slay men like Themba Mliso, as well as Professor Jonathan Moyo, to twerk so hard for the extension of the term of office of Emerson Tambutso Mnangagwa. Now he says, crucially, and this should be underscored. Section 95(2)(b) governs the term of office, not the term of the office. This guy, what is the difference? The term of office and the term of the officer. I mean, this guy, which is governed by Section 91(2). If a president resigns after 2 years, his or her successor serves only the remaining 3, not a full 5. This underlines, where did you get that? If a president resigns after 2 years, his or her successor serves only the remaining 3. Not a full 5 term. There is absolutely nothing like that. This underlines the office's contingent nature. I think if a president dies, the acting person should act for 6 months, and then elections are called, and a new president is elected. Professor Jonathan Moyo is misleading people here. This underlines the office contingent nature. The true term officer limit appears solely in Section 91(2), which keeps the re-eligibility of incumbent at 2 terms. Why did Emerson Tambutso Mnangagwa had to call elections as quickly as possible after the coup that they implemented on Robert Gabriel Mugabe, without necessarily serving the remainder of years that Robert Gabriel Mugabe was supposed to serve? Now, so he goes on to say, but it says at 92, which keeps re-eligibility of incumbents at 2 terms, with 3 or more years counting as a full term, but imposes no upper ceiling on term duration, allowing for 4, 5, 7 or more years, as may be rationally and democratically justifiable. Recent examples abound. Guinea just adopted a 7-year presidential term on 21 September 2025, while Ireland has for decades maintained a 7-year presidential term kept at 2 terms. Similarly, Parliament's 5-year lifespan under Section 1431 implies to the institution, not individual MPs who may serve partial terms. For instance, after by-election, unlike presidents, MPs face we know that we are not even talking about MPs. Under the always speaking doctrine affirmed in A's, is still referred desperately. Let me just read his conclusion, because I know where it goes. It says, in the circumstances, Coltard's alarmist narrative collapses under dispassionate and rational scrutiny. The Constitution of Zimbabwe, illuminated by the Mupungu case, empowers the legislature to amend presidential and parliamentary term lengths lawfully and democratically without potentially divisive and destabilizing referendums. To insist otherwise undermines the very legal and the constitutionalism that citizens in a constitutional democracy must uphold. But what I know, this guy is, I think whatever is smoking is too strong. Now, if the Constitution has to be amended, any section it has to go through a referendum. Parliamentarians are not empowered to actually amend any section of a constitution on their own. They are empowered to actually create laws aligning with the constitution. There is nowhere in the constitution where they are empowered to actually change the constitution, as Mnangagwa has been doing, especially with the issue of judges.